Welcome to the 2024 live reading. Oh my goodness. I don't even have a crumb of makeup on. There is zero filter here. It's just me. Okay. I'm gonna need to put on some lips. Really, I did say that this year needs us to be like ready now. If you follow me on social media or you follow Sangoma Society on social media and you got the updates while I was preparing this, then you know that a massive theme has been that the way it's looking right now, if you're not getting your house in order, if you're not holding yourself accountable, if you're not, you know, then this might be a challenging year. It might be a year that answers the things that you're not anticipating. Last year was a foundation year, so it was really great in terms of what it gave us for perspective, for what we can anticipate going forward. And this year, we're going in kind of hot. It's really tense once we enter that second quarter. But once we get to the mid-year solstice, there's this moment of reprieve where we can use that solstice energy to just surrender, you know, and we don't actually have a Cancer full moon this year because that's what we were suffering through in our festive season. That emotional, that stuff that was the Cancer full moon. And what's going to happen this year, we'll have a new moon in Cancer, but we're going to have 2 full moons in Capricorn and no full moon in Cancer this January. So that Cancer energy is only going to come just after the mid-year solstice, and it's going to be giving us that surrender, you know? Especially because when we look at what's happening in the sky for the year 2024, we're seeing April being a really difficult month emotionally. Like, I feel like the comeuppance is in February, where we're gonna see those questions about, well, you know, have you been holding yourself accountable, you know? And I think institutionally, it's going to be a very interesting year because Pluto in Aquarius, that's an age, right? It is not just like an individual moment. It affects a generation, it impacts a generation. So when you're looking at something that goes on for as long as Pluto is going on, it hasn't been here since the 1700s, you know, and we felt it. We felt it last year. If you can remember what last year was like for you between February and say late June, you kind of will say, okay, I get what that Pluto and Aquarius energy might do for me personally. For me personally, whoo, whoo, whoo. Okay? But we're getting the lessons, right, from the second half of the year when Pluto was in Capricorn. And right now, Pluto's moving direct again and making its way forward um, towards Aquarius. And that's happening. It's happening this month, this January. And it's going to stay there for a very long time. I'm not sure when does Pluto move up? In September is going to remain in Aquarius. So last year we had like a little bit of a window to have a look see at what things might be like if we don't make changes, right? That was that second quarter of last year where we really felt that impact. Where if we don't make changes, and then the retrograde season came to help us reclaim and like gain back the ground that we lost. And really, it was for integrating those lessons. And now, if you haven't done that work, if you haven't um, given yourself that opportunity, then I'm afraid you're going to find yourself kind of challenged in that 8 month window when Pluto is sitting in Aquarius. And especially because in April, we're going to have this energy that's just looking at the culmination of our efforts. Yo! He! Yo! At how much we've actually put in. And there might be like a lot of hurt. Yay! Where we might see how unsupported we are, and collectively, we're gonna start to see how everything that the 1% benefits from is us. And I mean, that's that's been happening. We already know that that's been there, right? That conversation has been happening. And I spoke a lot last year about that energy that took me back to like the 2008 financial crisis, looking at Uranus and Taurus, you know, and there's a few conjunctions uh, on that axis and a few transits with Uranus and Taurus, especially in April, that are going to highlight the collective contribution to the very few who live so well when we carry their ability to live as well as they do. And they're not living well, they're destroying the earth. I mean, it's greed. But these truths are becoming revealed, and May is a time when it can feel really, really confusing. But what you want to do is really, when we get into the details of the challenges with the astrology that we're seeing in April, what you want to do to poise yourself for the transits that come in May is that let yourself be quiet. Let yourself introspect and write, because you're going to have a lot of unconventional ideas, a lot of new ways of wanting to say things, right? But it won't be the right time to speak. And there's going to be a lot of hurt behind those words. A lot of hurt. Ooh, I'm like literally feeling it in my heart. That is going to come up because, again, April is that month where we're looking at the culmination of our efforts and how much we've stood on our own. And I think as a collective people, we're going to be looking at how, in the context of the collective, our governors are those who play in the role of parent, God, provider, right? They're our leaders. And when our governments abandon us to fend for ourselves in terms of the policies that they make, that hurt is really going to hit a like a high point. Like we're gonna feel it. We're really gonna feel it. And where you're feeling it personally in your life, it's if you've got a lot to say about it and you haven't got a journal, if you've never journaled, can this be the year that you start journaling? Do that one little thing for yourself, okay? Because you're gonna need it. You are going to need it, especially in the month of April. You're just gonna want to share those thoughts with yourself. It's a great way to learn about yourself and how you're processing things and how you experience things and what is collective and what is personal. And we are here in the capacity of, ubunyanga, izangoma, ubungoma rather than izangoma. And those things look at collective experiences. African astrology, the context in which we do these readings every month, every year, is a collective perspective because African philosophy is anchored in Ubuntu, which means that I am because you are. And because we relate to each other, we become human. This is the manifestation of our humanity by relating to one another. So when we do these readings, we do them in that context, speaking to how you as an individual, the influences of the astral, may be affecting you. And especially because we know that a large part of our community are other healers, abantwana bethongo who are still seeking their path, and individuals who have such people in their lives and want to gain perspective and understanding about that lived experience. And of course, the community that we live amongst, people who want to understand themselves in the context of their ancestors. It is impossible to build a relationship with your ancestors without building a relationship with yourself. And when you look at life through that prism, first yourself, interrogating yourself, building that relationship with your ancestors to deepen your understanding of yourself, you inevitably begin to see how you show up in the world around you and how you relate to the world around you. And community is an anchoring principle in African culture. We are communal people, and a lot of what we may experience, even astrologically, because of our epigenetic memory, connects to the collective. There are some really beautiful transits that reflect that opportunity to connect in such a beautiful way when we're looking around the time of the middle of the year. And that includes the solstice, that's Gemini season, we're going to see, Venus going into Gemini, it's just like, it's giving outside, it's giving thinking about others and connecting. And that's the thing with the astrology of 2024. It's saying when we look ahead, do the work now. Like, don't back down, don't shy away from it. Because there's this opportunity for happiness that's coming. And like where the hurt is, go into it. Feel the feelings. Edlozini, ancestrally, emsamo, in the spaces that house our family and ancestral altars, there is a term, intlambuluko. Intlambuluko, if I was to describe it as anything, perhaps would be a tower moment, the tarot card of the tower, how we let everything fall apart. Speak openly. Ukuhlambuluka is to be open without pretense, complete honesty. And ukuhlambuluka emoyeni is to be free in your spirit, because you know that you are within the truth of your own honesty, within your integrity. And ukuhlambuluka edlozini means that you're connecting with the ancestors in that way. And ukuba umuntu ohlambulukile is to be a person who, no matter what level of scrutiny you may be subjected to, you will be found to be in your integrity. Whether it means that, like, you're a mean person and you present and accept and vocalize and self-identify as that, or whether you are, the virtue that you portray yourself to be. Whatever it is, Intlambuluko is essentially integrity, honesty, and connecting in integrity and honesty. And I believe that this first quarter is asking for us ukuthi sihlambuluke. And the second quarter is going to bring leyo ntlambuluko to our doorstep, into our laps, into our heart chakra, The third quarter is going to say, you've done the work. And then that final quarter, we're going to have some realizations. And we're going to feel the weight of the work that we've done in this year. We will. It's going to call for rest. And I'm not sure what these heartbreaks are. But it doesn't look like we end this year on a high note. This war right now, where we're starting, and we've already seen this energy, the opportunity, the collective opportunity that I see in this reading, as I've done it for this year, which is I have employed cartomancy, I have employed obviously astrology, consideration of all of the transits, and I have spent several days connecting with the ancestors and asking for guidance and for perspective from them. And I have Makhosi in these 3 short days of this year. Already found myself in a place of growth. Makhosi. Wow. I think maybe if I'm going to be talking about the ancestors and I'm already a third of the way through this reading, I should introduce who they are. Mina nginguMakhosi Nomabutho emsamo. That is the context of ubungoma nobunyanga bami. And those are the ancestors, Amabutho Amakhosi, that work through me. I'm Honey, tell a story on all social media networks, and Honey Magwagwa to my parents. But in the context of my work, because I do not do this work from Honey's understanding and perspectives, but rather interpreting the perspectives brought through by Amabuto. And I am Umakhosi, Umgoma, Emsamo. Abogogo nabo mkhulu nabo bakhona asibashiye emva siyathokoza kuleyo ndawo. Makhosi. You know, you just start talking and you don't observe protocols. It's feeling like this reading is going the way this year will be, where it's like if you're not saying, hey, this is who I'm accountable to. This is who I'm answerable to. This is what my responsibilities are. This is, if we're not doing that at the get go, you're going to get about a third of the way through and it's going to come knocking. Do you see? Do you see? Do you see that pattern? Okay, because we're about a third of the way through this reading and that came knocking. The opportunity with this year is to take all the work, all the understanding, all this perspective, and bring it to our community. Our education is not for naught. And like when you look at who's in the driver's seat at this moment in time, it's us, it's the millennials, and we're like the most educated generation of like, since what? It's a master's degree to get an entry level job at this point. So, all that time, all that perspective, and we've been doing the work as the children of the age of Aquarius. This has been a sphere of influence, introspection, going into the spiritual, understanding our emotional worlds, unconventional ways of connecting with the world has been a reality for us in a significant way since about 2012. And now we have come into that time where it's all culminating. But it says the opportunity for this year represents a moment to humble ourselves in the context of our community, to know ourselves through those whom we have the privilege of living amongst, to be accountable, to be held accountable, not to shy away from that accountability when it's called out, because it could be called out, and if it's called out, then fine, it won't kill you. Don't run. Like, lean into it. Accountability is the doorway to integrity. And the opportunity this year is like, oh yeah, sure, context of community, yada, 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 yada. But humble yourself, look inside. Look at your role within your community. When you're lamenting, oh, why this isn't happening, no, what are you doing to make it happen? What part are you playing? Are you, when you raise your voice to speak? Yeah, yeah. That February into April window, if virtue signaling has been what the thing is for you, for the brand that you've built, for who you pretend to be, if that's the game that you've been playing, oh my gosh, I'm sorry for you. I'm sorry for you. And if you're a person who's been feeling, kind of like deceived, man, yeah, it's going to be a good time to gain that perspective, to start to see those where the foul footery is a play. You're going to start to see the foul play. Um, and there's a element of the divine feminine. I am not one to speak about these things in it, but element of the divine feminine that comes into play when we look at that Libra eclipse in March, when we look at that first eclipse season, and she wants to fight. She's saying, not in my name. No, you don't. It's so funny how for me it's like that whole the femininity coaching and like that stuff, and how like popular discourse has, bastardized these sacred concepts into this really commercialized, watered down, and like completely devoid of the safety protocols that would go in hand with where they borrow these concepts from, which is largely sex work, and obviously the pure toxicity of good old-fashioned patriarchy. But it's going to come into question. So if it's something that you've been depending on, that you've been playing on in your own personal life, um, allow that eclipse season to bring this into question for you. Let it happen. Don't fight it. Okay? Don't fight it. Let this first equinox give you an opportunity to just start again. And if there are things that you need to mourn, things that you need to lament about, the realities of the wounds that you were trying to heal through some sort of pop psychology, and like not really doing the work, and how now it's culminated, and you start to see that in the month of April when all those things start to come home to roost, and we have to look at how much we're responsible for in what it is that we reap. And like the beginning of April is going to be so tense, guys. It's going to be so tense. Let me tell you, we're in the middle of eclipse season. I think I've already spoken about what we're expecting, right? Like January, what it is, you're preparing yourself for this year. And like you're coming into this with the intention to be holding yourself accountable. You're coming into this with the intention to hold yourself accountable to your community. Because right now, people are not feeling very much that there is a culture of accountability within the context of community. That's the collective thing. We're just siyabalabala man. We're not happy. It feels like things are breaking. you know, that's where we are in this year. But that opportunity is accountability. That's what the opportunity looks like, because the lesson that comes out of this year is how much we make our own luck. How poetic is that? I just love this year. I just love this year because it's for the girls who've been doing the work. Okay? It is for the girls who have been doing the work. The places where this year might pull us down into the shadows, coming back to how this year progresses, where it might pull us down into the shadows. If you've been doing the work this year, you're going to feel and see why. You're going to begin to understand what it is that you've been preparing for, you know? Because sometimes when you're doing the work, it's an inside job. And that's what the opportunity this year is, the inside job. Like, don't be a hero. Don't try to play at being a hero, you know? Don't rescue, don't fall into those patterns, especially in February. Don't be clever. Don't be clever. This year doesn't want clever. This year wants accountable. This year wants humble. This year says you can be audacious by all means. Be audacious. Um, and your audacity is going to be in how much you show up for yourself, by holding yourself accountable first, by being the first to call yourself out, by being the first to stand in your boundaries, like I'm not going there, or I'm not involving myself in things that don't require me. There's a difference between helping and rescuing, and that is going to kind of be the lesson of accountability of this year, where we might be in our ego in one sense, in terms of thinking that we're doing so much for our community and like showing up out there, all of that, by rescuing, kind of like sweeping in and actually taking the microphone from the people who needed to have it and advocating on their behalf, or, you know, where we may have done that, or just in in inserted ourselves in situations that don't need us, um, because we're actually running away from the realities of where we had no one to stand up for us when we had those kind of situations. And instead of like doing the work to heal ourselves and like focusing our energy on like finding that part of ourselves that wants to be helped, that wants to be healed, that is going to be so very much in the sphere of like our eye line, our perspective, in our line of sight come April. This year is like giving us that opportunity to sit with those wounds. Where you want to rescue is where you need to be rescued in yourself. Rescue your future self from not getting back into that situation again. If you're like renting, for instance, and you want to like help every homeless person at this moment in time because you were once homeless, your future self is not yet secure. Rescue your future self from homelessness. Find a way to own, and not like own as in from the banks, but find a way to own what is yours. Okay, what you call home, so that when you're like rescuing someone else from homelessness, it won't be rescuing anymore because you will have rescued your future self to the point where your present self will represent the security that your future self has. And that will be the beacon that shines to the members of your community who need the kind of help you have available. And they will ask for that help. And then when they ask for that help, you will be able to offer it. We have to be very, very careful in the stories that we craft about ourselves. And the thing with April, I keep coming back to April, my gosh, and we're quite a long way through this already. We're supposed to be halfway through, but we're still, um, well, we're in the second quarter, so you know. But anyway, the thing with April is April starts in the middle of the eclipse season, first eclipse season for the year, continuing on that Libra Aries axis that we've just entered, which is wanting to fight, wanting more from life, wanting beauty, wanting all of that. Um, but there's still some homework that needs to be done because that full moon in April is going to be in Scorpio. So, inside stuff, death, um, plutonic energy, like what needs to end with me questions, right? But then, boom, Mercury retrograde on the 1st of April in Aries. If there's one thing you're not doing in April, it's running your mouth because so clever you are. So clever you are at that time. But not enough foresight. Aries is always ready to just jump in and fight, but not enough foresight. Now, there was some Aquarius energy with this Mercury retrograde that I recall, but I'm not seeing in my notes. I just want to double check what I've said here. Where's this Aquarius energy that I pick up in the month of April? Something was giving. I can't tell you what it was because there was a lot of unconventional thinking, very smart. Or that might be the second, that might be the next Mercury retrograde. Let me not lie, but I remember there was a Mercury retrograde where you think you're really smart, but you're not. But there's a lot of pain in April, and that is because we've got Chiron, Kazimi, Aries. When a planet is Kazimi, and technically Chiron is not a planet, but it has a lot of influence on us. That's the wounded healer, that's our wounds. When a planet is Kazimi, it means that it is as close to the sun as it will get to. So it's like the feeling on that day is almost as though the sun is in that planet. And that is on the 8th of April. So Mercury retrograde, sun in the wounded healer. And then you have a Mars conjunction with Saturn in Pisces. You want to fight, but you're so hurt because Pisces so hurt about why things didn't go the way that you thought that they were gonna go. Don't talk. Don't talk. Write. And it's like if you want to write a business plan or revise a business plan, Let me tell you, let me tell you the perspective that you're going to have in Aries about all the stuff that you've done, about how much in your power you are if you're rewriting your CV at that time. Yes, because you're going to be in that all my life I've had to fight energy in that Aries. Okay? So when you're able to gain perspective on you, and then there's that beautiful conjunction of Jupiter and Uranus in Taurus, where material things, beauty, what is beautiful, the desires of the one, like the material desires, and like the unconventional ways in which you could find yourself acquiring those things. And of course, I mean, that's just in terms of career trends, industry trends, collective trends. Tech is going to kind of explode this year. Yeah, tech. It's yes, it's been growing, but like think more automation. Think, but like the automation is going to be a lot more about how to connect people, not just using AI as a substitute for a person, but how to use AI to connect people more seamlessly, to be the bridge, like that handover. Like we're gonna see a lot of that. Oh my God. There's like one particular company that I'm seeing that is gonna have such a good year. Okay. Anyway, it's a tech company. There's a few, there's a lot of, I think, applications working in those spaces, and widgets and things and whatever, whatever. And if you're in that space and like you've been worried and things, it's like if your teams work better together, collaborate, park the ego, don't try to take credit for other people's work, then and even mergers in tech. So where companies might be competing for the same kind of funding, etc., we might start to see mergers in that second quarter. Whoa, damn. Okay. All right. All right. Um, and Jupiter then enters Gemini in May, where things will feel a little bit confusing, but that's that collaborative energy still. And I mean, Jupiter, eye to collaboration. If you're keeping things open, if you're like, okay, how can I build by sharing this pie? How about we put 3 pies, 4 pies together, and by doing that, there's a bigger pie to share, and that the slice of the pie I have is actually valued at more than my pie on its own. If you're thinking in those ways in terms of leadership, you'll go so far. Ooh, I'm so excited to see what the BRICS nations do this year. Okay. Yeah, the BRICS nations, because you know why? Because the BRICS nations represent the global south, and the global north is showing their ass right now. And when we see this month of February going into April, it's not cute for them. And by the time we get to June, okay, by the time we get to June, there's some answers. There's some answers. There's a really strong collective energy that pulls together. Because remember, each solstice mirrors like the what was happening with that last solstice and what happens with the next solstice. So when we look at what was going on for us with the last solstice just before Christmas, and like where we're collectively starting to see the narrative change on the genocides. The thing is, the genocides have been ongoing with impunity. But collective action has forced the news cycle in the global north, which was serving the oppressor, serving the fascists, to now change their story because they're starting to see that they're losing popularity because the collective, social media, where we do so much consumption, and the collective, the reality that the majority of the world is not the ruling class, is not the 1%, and the majority of the world is connecting in their suffering and connecting in their understanding of how the collective global suffering is as a result of the collective global north. You get me? So yeah, when we're taking those perspectives that we've gotten from this recent solstice and we're looking at the theme about how communal this year is, and when we get to that mid-year solstice, there's a culmination of all that discourse, action, the embargoes. Oh, the English is finishing, my goodness. The boycotts, how the boycotts are taking effect, taking action, and probably even those naval embargoes. Do we see water? Where am I seeing water here? Maybe in May, we're seeing the effects of that collective embargo, what it's doing in terms of naval and what it does to how we are seeing these conflicts play out. We're essentially strangling these people, forcing them into the necessary realizations about the status quo not being how we're just going to carry on. We're no longer prepared to accept things as they have been. And we're seeing that strongly in the middle of the year and going into June, July. Now, just in terms of personal relationships, I want to talk about this window between May and July. We're going to have Venus conjuncting Jupiter in Taurus, okay, on the 23rd of May. Yo, that's a really beautiful time to solidify, make commitments, and like take it to the next step with your lover. Because, yeah, when Gemini season starts there in the end of May, and we go seeing Jupiter entering Gemini, and Gemini goes Kazimi, Venus goes Kazimi Gemini in June, it's just giving we outside, bruh. So, like, okay, a person really needs to consider doing summer in Europe this year, like, because it's going to be an amazing summer. Um, there's just so much like community energy and connection and love, and it's this potential for things to come to a head in June, where we're either going to destroy each other completely. I'm looking here at Mars squaring Pluto in Aquarius, Mars in Taurus squaring Pluto in Aquarius, and it's like we're either gonna destroy each other, or when you look just a month ahead and seeing Mars conjuncting Uranus in Taurus, it may be the crescendo of the conflict that forces dialogue, right? And then when we go into the Lion's Gate, following the solstice. The solstice is such a great time. Then the Lion's Gate, we've really got the tempo. If you've been doing the work, if you start the year doing the work, by the time you're coming to the Lion's Gate in August, and all of the planetary support that is in place for that, once again, introspection, because we have Mercury retrograde. But to like leverage, right? So if you were using May to do your business planning or your applications and things, you're maybe seeing answers coming through in August and being able to kind of start ascertaining how to apply them. It does that a little bit, you know? It does that a little bit. There's optimism there for me. There's optimism there, you know? And then September gets really, really busy because a retrograding Pluto goes back into Capricorn, and that's that little window for us to consider like, okay, we're learning, we're learning, we're learning, we're learning. What have we learned? How do we apply it? Because 19th of November, we've got Pluto re-entering Aquarius, okay? And when that happens, that's when I say like, yeah, we're gonna be feeling the weight of the work that we put in. It's like, it's not a joke. Like when November comes around, book yourself off now. Book yourself off. I like, I don't know, because December is not even looking charitable for me. It's like, it's just not giving charity. It's just not giving that spirit, you know? It's not. It's not feeling, again, very festive. Um, it's not absolutely horrendous this year in terms of at least the moon. Um, the full moon has the decency to be in Gemini instead of Taurus, and that's well in advance yo of the solstice and the yo hey the new year yo yo, and the Mercury retrograde ends a little bit earlier this year, so yo, there is opportunity for you to consider how you can make this Christmas Christmassy. But how you do that is not by expecting it to just happen because it is, but rather to ask yourself what role you play. We go back to community, how you can play your part. There might be an impact, like in terms of global economic downturn, that we start to see Man, how did we really go the whole of 2023 with no actual announcement of the economic downturn? I don't know how we're doing this. Apart from money is made up. Oh yes, massive theme for the year, that really starts to play up heavy in April is how money is a made up concept, and how the system, the economic system that we're under at the moment, is not the only option, and that is going to come to a head quite heavy in September, when we're gonna feel like, with that equinox and going into that second eclipse of the year, eclipse season of the year, we're really gonna feel, and then Pluto going back into Capricorn, we're gonna feel how it's like, man, this is on our backs. Like everything is on us, like us little people. Our leaders aren't doing anything. Like, ooh, yeah. But the thing that the December thing, Christmas, that solstice, with seeing such meager means, seeing so little money to go around. And I mean, it's going to be the second time we're going into the Black Friday and Christmas, like spending extravaganza without much of a spending extravaganza energy to speak of. Okay, because that was definitely the energy last year, right? So, yeah, it's going to continue that way. It's going to continue that way. We will see that again this year. But perhaps there's room for us in our lamentation, in our heartbreak, that instead of becoming stingy with our resources, instead of going, woe is me, the way that this system has broken my heart, the way that instead of doing that, maybe we could reconcile with um, our part in community. This year, it's so clear. It's so clear what it wants. We're going to be growing as people, as a collective, as a, you know, the age of Aquarius speaks to this elevation in collective consciousness, this unconventional new way of seeing and thinking and doing. And the way that plays out thematically this year is through the system of money, because we're reconciling the work that we put in. So they might be unionizing. That's where collective work and money and community meet, within unions. Unionize. If there's a union for whatever you're in, unionize, guys. Unionize. The unions are going to be finding their feet, their power consolidating in this year, and they're quite a power to look out for going forward. And I think unionization is what is going to bring capitalism to its knees. Unionization is what is going to bring tech into regulation. Yep. Because if we're gonna get anything done, it's going to be collectively. Hence the power of the union in this year and going into next year. The eclipses this year, and how they play out in terms of governance. So many elections, like globally, so many government elections, like presidential elections. And yeah, man, I don't know, but what we're seeing in terms of elections and what comes out of it, whatever government bodies are formed from those elections in whichever countries, and I mean, it's going to vary from country to country, obviously, because of individual countries' astrology based on when that country became the iteration of what it operates as today, as a republic or a democracy, etc. Right? But generally, the theme is what's kind of formed, the governments that are being formed, that they think they're forming, um, in these individual countries, with the elections that are likely to be for the majority of countries in the world. I don't know, I'm hearing that they're going to happen between May, June, April, May, and July. I don't know why there's no elections in June as such, but April, May, and July are the months that I'm hearing mostly for elections, and we're going to see probably coalitions being formed. Um, but whatever those things are, a coalition that's been formed now to govern an individual country, you're probably going to see that system fall apart in the second eclipse season of 2025. I don't know. This video will still be up as long as this app is still up, and if I lied, I lied. The thing I love about this reading, the year reading, is that you can always come back to it. Um, and I was so glad to see that with the year reading from last year, so many people um, came back to it and used it to gain perspective. We have a shorter retrograde um, season this year. It starts a little bit later. Um, and I like that. And they're not, it's not a pile up like this year. This year was like, listen to me saying this year, like in 2023, the retrograde season came like an avalanche. 2024, it staggers itself kind of in the second half of the year, and more in the final quarter, and going into the first quarter of 2025. That what's going to be happening over there, um, we'll deal with it when we get there, okay? For now, we have our work cut out for us, okay? We have our work cut out for us. And essentially, if we meet this year with the energy that it's asking of us, then we're going to the top, Baba. We are going to the top, okay? For me, the resources I'm using is the Restful Reset workbook, from Sangoma Society. Like, that's a right now thing. Like, that's a before the new moon thing. Like, we're in that at this moment. You've got the Making a Miracle Masterclass, which guides you through that, okay? And it is a bonus, absolutely free, with the um, Pivoting into Purpose course, which is the perfect guidebook for actually what this year is panning out to be, because it goes from solstice to solstice. So from the solstice, if you had signed up Pivoting into Purpose, you know you've got access to the Making a Miracle Masterclass, which gives you the Restful Reset workbook, right? And if you are signed up to either the Making a Miracle Masterclass, which is a standalone, or the Pivoting into Purpose, you get your hard copy of, if you're signing up right now, you get your hard copy of the Restful Reset workbook, and you can work through that for the entire year. It is quarterly. You're able to reflect with each solstice, each equinox, you know, as we've broken things down here. You can even use this as a guide if you're just, using the Making a Miracle Masterclass workbook on its Making a Miracle Masterclass on its own, or if you're just using the digital download of the Restful Reset workbook, which is essentially designed as a response to the pressures of living as a spiritually conscious being under the systems of capitalism. Because we find ourselves so anxious at the beginning of the year. We find ourselves so worried, borrowing so much grief from the potential of the year. And empathetically, maybe also picking up on that collective grief and anxiety. So we need something that shows us who we are, how we've shown up, why we were doing the things that we were doing. And that's what the workbook is for, the Restful Reset workbook. And I think it would be a really brilliant one to use alongside the recording of this reading, and revisit quarterly quite easily. It can be done. But if you have the resources, join the Making a Miracle Masterclass, get your hard copy as a gift there, or better yet, join Pivoting into Purpose and have that very clear um, community to walk the journey with you. But everything for us, it's the intention is one, and we're always looking at how to make what it is that we offer accessible to a person regardless of what resources are for them. And the thing is that often the fewer your resources, maybe if you're unemployed, the more time you have. And it might take more time to proceed through something without the help of the community. Like if you're in the course costs such, for instance, it's $599, which is give or take 12,000 Rand, right, for pivoting into purpose. Now, there you've got community. You've got access to about 4 hours with me every month. You know, I can coach you through what you're going through. Um, and if you don't have time on your side because you're such a busy person, then it's easy for you to use that one resource as something that you use to leverage yourself through your journey of self-actualization, of learning who you are. Excuse me, I need to turn on the slides. However, if you're a person who wouldn't be able to afford that um, installment of 1,200 a month for the year and having that amount of time for group coaching with me, then you might have the resources in terms of your time. Maybe you're not traveling a lot for work. Maybe you don't have, whatever demands it is that that would require you to have, you know, support, a stronger team, of which I would be a part if you were enrolled in the course. However, if you don't have that resource and you still hold the same intention and you want something that can work you through the year with a perspective on the future, that's when then now you have the Making a Miracle Masterclass, where we meet quarterly to work through the workbook, right? Which is the Restful Reset Workbook, which is available for purchase on the website, where you can get your hard copy in your hands, right? And work through that. And it's such a beautiful workbook. I might actually go fetch it to show it to you guys. But if you don't have the resources for that, right? Because that's like 2,000 Rand for the year. But if you don't have the resources for that, perhaps you have the resources to pay 223 Rand once off for the digital download and fill that in, work through that using a resource like this year reading. And maybe it's going to take you a little bit more time and effort to revisit. And maybe you're going to have to be, you know, a lot more diligent in terms of how you get to actually like getting the same result as a person who is in the course. But this is the thing, there is nothing that you're going to get without working for it. That's the reality, right? So whether you work in order to have the resources, in order to have the support that guides you through this process quicker and easier and with perspective, or whether you work by applying more of your own time and effort, at the end of the day, we're all human. And one thing we all have in common, the equalizer, the great equalizer, is time. And time as currency is what that Restful Reset Workbook really helps to bring into perspective. So you're going to pay for things, your presence here, the time you spend on this earth one way or another. How are you going to do it? Especially in the context of how you show up as a member of your community. Because this year, especially the first half of this year, is going to call into question how you hold yourself accountable, the stories you tell yourself, and the stories which are actually true. The scales are going to fall away. And yeah, it's going to be a bit of hard work in that second quarter, but there's rest in the future. It's not for nothing. It's not for nothing. What the work that you put in during April and May is the rest that you're going to reap during October and November. So do it. Okay? I hope that this perspective and this reading has brought you a sense of agency in terms of knowing where your own power lies with regards to the external influences that can impact your life. Because whether in the context of the ancestral, the communal, or the personal, what always remains consistent is us, us belonging to ourselves. And if we allow ourselves the courage, the audacity to belong to ourselves, not just as individuals, but as members of the communities that have made us who we are. And we contribute and we participate and we learn. And we keep quiet when it's time to keep quiet and learn when it's time to learn. And we stand up when we're called to act. And this year can be such a beautiful adventure in stepping into your own power, making your own luck. Oh, I can't help. It's an 8 year. 8 in numerology represents money, career, you know? Very Venusian, Taurian material, money. And even if the money systems change, the majority of us on this earth, we are not billionaires. We're bound to benefit. But if we want those systems to change in a way that benefits us, we're going to have to participate in the collective. We're going to have to answer when we're called. And if we want to remain a part of our communities, we're going to have to learn to sit down when we're not called. We're going to have to actually investigate and ask ourselves why it is that we weren't called. Are we ready? How can we get ready? So that when it is time to be called, it's clear where we should play the role that we think we deserve. But we're going to have to do the work to earn that privilege. It's not a right, it's a responsibility. And responsibility is a privilege. Mina ngingumakhosi Nomabutho. This is Sangoma Society, where we demystify the astral and the ancestral. And this was the year reading for 2024. And for the month of January, I will be doing year readings for individuals one-on-one. There will be a very limited number of slots available for that. And you're welcome to book your reading, and we'll have this conversation in the context of how it affects you directly and what your ancestors want you to know about the lessons, the opportunities, and the windows of hope for this year. and how to walk through them. Until next time, Mina, you Makhosi Nomabutho, and it has been a privilege to be in your presence. Ukhanye in the year 2024.